started up in Canada?
It started up in Canada, right, and then it came down here.
Mrs. Yule was a member of here, and she's the one who started our chapter, or helped us start our chapter.
And Joy, you've been a member for how long?
Yeah, I've been
62 years.
It's been.
Wow.
We have got the most members that have belonged for the longest time.
And this is the daughters of the British Empire.
Yeah, and two years ago we had 6 or 7 members that were 60-year members.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, we were invited to the chapter Mrs. Yule was in.
Yeah.
Mrs. Yule was the first member who got us together.
Mrs. Yule, all right.
Really upsets him. I mean, he just...
So that's interesting. It started in Canada.
But there's 250 members now in good standing in Washington State. And of course membership goes from one side of the country to the other, and all the way from the north all the way down to the south. So
they have one up in Canada too.
Yeah, yeah. So we have 4.
I knew there was the one. All right.
Okay.
No, we have them, and some
Where
of
are
us have been
where
down.
are they all located?
Well, there's one in Sierra Madre in California. There's one down in Texas, I believe. Then there's 2 on the East Coast.
Oh, see, I only knew about the California one.
Dorothy, where's
so
the
I'm
homes
learning
on the
too.
East Coast? There's one in California, one in Texas.
One in Chicago.
There's 2 on the East Coast, right?
Yeah, there's one in New York.
On Memorial Day,
Yes.
we have a very
And
special
2 hour.
garden of Susan and David and Sydney. Just a lovely setting. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
And you are?
I am Dorothy Walker, previously known as Dorothy White Overton. I came from
My,
Say that again.
Dorothy.
two-barreled name?
Yes.
Oh my.
3-barrel.
Hyphen, yeah.
Dorothy
my.
White Overton. And I came from Putney on a Pig.
What did you say? She came from Putney on a pig.
Well, that's what they used to say. Putney on a Pig.
Oh, that's cute.
And it's part of London, southwest London. I was actually born in Fulham, which is just across the Thames, and I did for a short time live on the Thames in my dad's boat. I was such a little baby, they put me in an orange box with the lid down to lift me from the dinghy up onto the deck.
Oh, how cute.
And the lady next door, in the next door boat, was Dutch. And she'd, oh, you can't do that to a little baby. And it was better than dropping her in the water.
Oh, that's cute.
And she thought that was really funny. And she laughed like this. So when next day my father came home, my mother said, there's something wrong with Duffy. I said, what's the matter? Well, she keeps on going.
Okay.
Well, hello. I'm Kay Louise Cook, and I was born in Australia, in Albury, and I've been living here in Seattle since 1967. So I guess I've lived here longer than I've lived in Australia now. But it's gorgeous to be here on this lovely day.
Avril Meehan was Avril Wainwright, and I'm from Highgate, London. Well, I'm also from Hornsey, Highgate, and what do they say, Hampstead.
All the H's.
All of those.
All the H's.
H's, yes.
Yes, but I also lived in Nottinghamshire and mostly in Kent, which is the most beautiful county in England.
Oh.
Yes.
All right.
And but I've lived here a lot longer, and I have a friend where I live now in Providence Point. She just got back from England. Her daughter took her to a wedding, and she said she didn't want to leave. So it made me jealous. I want to go back.
Oh.
I'm Sydney Sanders. You give your maiden name?
Yes, I did.
Sydney Helen Davis. Okay. And I was born in Carshalton, Surrey, and lived there as an infant for about 6 months. But then they moved. Most of my time I spent in Westcliff, which is on the coast.
Yes.
And grew up there on the seaside, which I enjoyed. And I went into the army when the war broke out, before the war broke out actually, and spent most of the 6 years in there. And then I got married and came over here.
My maiden name was Rexford, Nellie Rexford. and I lived in Cornwall, Penryn, Cornwall, near Falmouth. What else do you need to know?
When did you come to America?
Well, I came in 1945. It was before the war ended, actually. And I stayed with some relatives in Connecticut for 3 months, because when I got here, my husband, who had been in Rhode Island, had been shipped off to the Pacific. So I stayed there, but after a while he was sent home. And but it still took time, but I traveled to Seattle in June of '45, and he came back from California on leave.
Name Betty Bridges, married to Bud Bridges, in
She's forgotten where she was married.
Was it in Sydney? Was it in Sydney, Australia you were married?
Oh, no, Sydney, Australia. No, not Sydney.
No?
It was
Melbourne, wasn't it?
yeah, met and married my husband in Sydney, Melbourne.
Melbourne.
Yeah, Melbourne.
Okay.
Australia.
You need more drink.
And
Did you come right to Seattle?
yeah, came to Seattle, yeah, and then to this place. What is it?
Okay. But that's a minute here. Go ahead.
I'm Joy, and I was born in Charters Towers, Queensland, Australia. And when I was 4, my family moved to Rockhampton, and that's where I lived until I came over here in '46, I think it was. And just before the war, 30,000 Americans arrived in Rockhampton. I met and married one of them. And he has since died, but then I joined the Australian Air Force, and I was in Melbourne, Brisbane, and Bundaberg as a wireless telegraphist. And I came over here when the war ended, and somehow I've been here ever since. Just been back for a few trips. So.
Okay, I'm Frankie McCormick, and I was born in Chelsea, London, at St. Mary's Hospital, and lived there in Putney for 2 years, and then we moved out to Ashford, Middlesex, which is where I grew up, and I went to school in Twickenham, which is famous for having one of the most famous rugby teams and rugby pitches in England, and where we lived was right between Hampton Court and Windsor, which was a very lovely spot to live, and my dad had a boat on the river that we spent a lot of time in, and I went to work for the British Air Ministry, and they sent me to work at Bushy Park, and I went to work there, and I met my husband through my work, and he's from Cedar Woolley, Washington, which is a very strange place, and so I'm very happy now to be living in Edmonds, Washington.
Susan is a gracious host, and
Sydney Sanders is my mother-in-law. She lives here with us, and we love hosting the May meeting of the DBE. And it turned out to be a beautiful day today.
and look at this feast. Oh wow. And David?
I'm not part of the feast.
Oh yes you are.
I am the bartender and parking assistant. That's about it.
And
Janice Doherty, Betty Bridges' daughter, born here in Seattle.
and major troublemaker.
Yes, I am. And here comes
Come in for their feast.
no, not far.